With the surprise announcement of Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, there's a newfound interest in a series that hasn't gotten a major entry in quite a few years. Though still maintaining a dedicated fanbase, myself included, and featuring gaming's premier ninja representative, my intentions with this video is to catch people up on the story of the series and its protagonist, Ryu Hayabusa. I hope you enjoy. Our story opens with an iconic shot of two opponents dueling in an open field, with one in orange being defeated. The fallen warrior is Joe Hayabusa, who had left a note to his son, Ryu Hayabusa, prior to accepting the duel. He instructed Ryu that, should he not return from the battle, to take the dragon sword guarded by their family for generations, and set off to America to find his friend Walter. Ryu sets off to the States, leading to an encounter with the Barbarian, a member of a group known as the Malice 4, at a bar. He's then soon tranquilized and captured by a mysterious woman, being transferred to a CIA-run prison, the woman in question being Irene Liu, who captured Ryu to give him a mysterious demon statue and quickly send him on his way, as there are people pursuing him and the statue. Ryu would then encounter and defeat another member of the Malice 4 by the name of Bomberhead during his escape. He would then seek out Walter as per his father's instructions, who would then give him the context behind the demon statue and Joe's parting words. During an expedition to South America, Joe and Walter would discover a tablet, depicting a battle that took place 700 years ago. An ancient demon known as Jashin would wreak havoc upon the earth before being defeated by a dragon ninja, an ancestor of Ryu, utilizing the dragon sword. Jashin couldn't be defeated, however, so instead he was sealed into two statues, one of shadow and one of light, with Joe and Walter holding on to each respectively so as to keep them apart. Walter's story would be cut short, however, as another member of the Malice 4 by the name of Bosk steals the shadow statue from Ryu, who gives chase and defeats him. Sadly, he would return to find Walter mortally wounded, who would then soon pass away, with Ryu then being approached by the CIA and leaving with them. Ryu would meet a commanding officer by the name of Foster, who finishes Walter's story. It turns out that an evil sorcerer by the name of Jakyo had taken control of the ruins that Joe and Walter had discovered, as it actually contains the body of the defeated Jashin. If both the light and shadow statues were reunited under a dark moon, Jashin would be revived, and Jakyo seeks to use its power to rule the world. Ryu agrees to help stop the sorcerer, and so is subsequently transported to South America. Upon his arrival, Ryu makes his way toward Jakyo, but is compelled to surrender the demon statues, as Jakyo has taken Irene hostage and threatens her life. With no alternative, Ryu complies and is then dropped through a trapdoor. As he battles through the caverns, Ryu eventually reaches the ruins, where he confronts Bloody Mouth, the leader of the Malice 4 and his father's murderer. Ryu defeats Mouth, who, before dying, taunts Ryu by claiming that Joe is still alive and that their meeting won't be pleasant. Ryu ultimately finds Jakyo alongside the masked devil, who is revealed to be his father under mind control. However, Ryu identifies an orb controlling his father and destroys it, liberating him. Jakyo attempts to strike Ryu, but Joe takes the damage, protecting his son. Ryu retaliates and defeats Jakyo in combat. Afterward, the two rescue Irene, but as they attempt to escape, Joe urges Ryu to quickly retrieve the demon statues. Unfortunately, it's too late, as a lunar eclipse occurs, awakening Jashin. Though Ryu manages to follow in his ancestors' footsteps, defeating the beast with the dragon sword, the battle would cause the ruins to begin to collapse. Joe is unable to escape the ruins in time, and tells Ryu and Irene to leave as fast as they can, with Ryu grieving the loss of his father. Though Irene is tasked by Foster to kill Ryu, she refuses, and the game ends with the two looking at the sunrise in the distance. This time around we start off straight into the action, as Ryu is engaged in combats on the rooftops of New York, ending in a battle against a large zombie by the name of Dondo. After Ryu's victory, an agent by the name of Robert T. Sturgeon appears, informing Ryu that Irene has been kidnapped, and that he should quickly make his way to the Tower of Laha if he wants to save her. Robert then disappears, saying that Ryu may be the only person able to deal with what's ahead. Ryu boards a freight train bound toward the tower in the countryside, defeating Baron Spider along the way. Once Ryu scales the tower, he encounters Ashtar, an evil sorcerer that is known as the Emperor of Darkness. Robert arrives at the tower with backup. Ashtar then takes Irene with him as he goes into a portal leading to the demon world, while Ryu and Robert give chase. Though Ryu would manage to make his way to Ashtar, he'd be too late as Irene is stabbed. Ashtar is swiftly defeated, but Irene reveals that there's an altar that must be destroyed before Jashin is revived once more. Ryu entrusts Irene to Robert, but soon runs into him again, injured on the way to the altar. Jakyo had overpowered him and taken Irene. When Ryu does reach the altar, Jakyo reveals that the death of Jashin had revived him with newfound strength. Though he was no match for Ryu, the spilling of his blood would cause the ritual to be complete, sacrificing Irene's life and reviving Jakyo once more as a powerful demon. Ryu manages to use the dragon sword to finally finish off the sorcerer, though Ryu mourns the loss of Irene. At that moment, the dragon sword begins to glow, and Irene comes back to life. The two rejoice and watch the sunset. Irene is pursued by a clone of Ryu that forces her off of a cliff to her presumed death, prompted by her investigation into a mysterious laboratory. Ryu makes his way to said lab to pursue whomever is responsible for Irene's death and his framing. Inside, he encounters a mysterious man who directs him to Castle Rock Fortress, goading Ryu with potential information about Irene. After making his way to Castle Rock, Foster contacts Ryu, yet plays dumb as to the fate of Irene. Ryu would later do battle with his clone, but would end up being defeated. Though in Foster's orders, the clone spares Ryu and flees the scene. The mysterious man appears again, revealing himself to be Clancy, a former associate of Foster's. He reveals that following the death of Jashin, an interdimensional rift had formed, which held an endless amount of natural energy. Foster would use this energy source to fuel a new form of advanced humans called bionoids. Presumably disgusted by Foster's ambitions and methods, Clancy implores Ryu to stop him. Ryu soon confronts Foster, who reveals his intentions to use Ryu's corpse as the foundation for a powerful bionoid. Irene, who has survived her fall from the cliff, interjects and brings an army with her to stop Foster, but the Ryu clone comes in and transforms. Ryu dispatches him, just for Clancy to suddenly appear and announce his intentions to take control of the rift for himself. He enters a mysterious portal, with Foster attempting to pursue, but instead being vaporized. Ryu decides to pursue him alone, as the portal is far too dangerous for Irene to enter. Ryu soon encounters the clone once more, and finishes him off. He's then transported to a room where Clancy explains his intentions in detail. Castle Rock is actually an ancient warship capable of utilizing the energy from the rift, a weapon of mass destruction that Clancy intends to use to exterminate humanity in their current form and create a new breed of bionoid humans. He demonstrates the ship's power and Ryu pursues him. After rejecting Clancy's offer to work alongside him, Ryu does battle with him after he transforms into a bionoid and defeats him. Ryu is then transported back to Irene, where they watch the sunrise after the ship plummets. While Joe Hayabusa continues his training in the sacred wilderness, Ryu is entrusted with the dragon sword as he seeks out his estranged uncle, Mirai, for special training at the Shadow Ninja clan headquarters. After doing battle with numerous Shadow Ninja underlings, Ryu has a near-deadly sparring match with Mirai, before settling down to discuss current events. This includes the current status of the Dark Dragon Blade, the sister blade to the Dragon Sword, sealed away to contain its malevolent power. Their conversation is soon interrupted, however, as Ayane of the Mugen Tenshin clan comes bearing grave news about an attack on the Hayabusa village, prompting Ryu to action. After making his way to the village, he finds it's been burned down, with many close to Ryu being slain. He eventually comes across his childhood friend, Kureha, being killed by a mysterious samurai in black, who defeats Ryu in combat using the Dark Dragon Blade. Hours after the fire is settled, a falcon appears near Ryu's corpse, though it isn't clear how this is connected to his recovery from the battle. Weeks later, Mirai tells Ryu that the Dark Dragon and Doku, the samurai in black, can both be found within the mysterious Vigorian Empire. Motivated by vengeance, Ryu dons the now legendary Black Falcon suit and boards an airship headed toward the capital city of Tehran, where he plans to seek further information. His presence doesn't go unnoticed, however, forcing Ryu to make his way through the ship and have it crash. He then makes a clean landing and travels to Han's bar, the best source of local information in town. On the way, he stops by the shop of a legendary swordsmith and family friend, Muramasa. After making it to the bar, Ryu encounters a young woman as she slays a mysterious creature with a large weapon. She introduces herself as Rachel, a hunter of fiends who uses her own demonic blood as a source of strength. Fiends being those who succumb to a curse in their own blood, becoming immortal creatures. She explains that fiends can only be saved by being killed, and as she pursues her sister who's been transformed. But the conversation ends there, as Rachel gives chase to potential prey. Ryu is then suddenly approached by a spy named Gemoff, who disappears soon after. After further infiltrating the city, Ryu encounters more fiends, with Rachel witnessing the battle and striking a conversation. However, she's then ambushed by a larger fiend, with Ryu being forced to save her. Ayane suddenly appears, informing Ryu that the Dark Dragon Blade is likely responsible for the increased number of fiends. Rachel follows up by mentioning an underground passage inside of the city monastery that leads to the palace, where Doku will likely be found. With the new destination, Ryu entrusts Rachel to Ayane, and then quickly makes his way through the monastery and then underground. After a battle with a large beast, a flood is soon triggered, forcing Ryu back above ground to the main hall. There, he's suddenly ambushed by an extremely powerful fiend, but comes out victorious. Rachel soon interjects, seeking the final blow, as the foe turns out to be her dear sister Alma. Unable to finish her off, Rachel is saddened by her lack of conviction. Ryu mentions that greater fiends appear to retain some degree of their soul, and Rachel agrees, stating that there are 3 in total: Alma, Doku, and one that guards the Vigorian Emperor. After Ryu leaves to continue his search, Doku knocks out Rachel, capturing her. The battle with Alma had completely destroyed the monastery, putting the Vigorian military on high alert, with Ryu as their primary target. To prevent further ambushes getting in the way, Ryu retaliates by directly assaulting the military's base of operations, destroying their communication systems and crippling their ability to organize. Now that the threat had been taken care of, Ryu makes his way to the city sewers. After traversing the city moat, he would then find himself back under the monastery, taking an elevator to the Colosseum, where Doku was carrying Rachel. After a fierce battle, Ryu had finally defeated the samurai, but his mission was not yet complete. Doku informs Ryu that the Dark Dragon Blade was now in the hands of the Emperor, and that since members of the dragon lineage such as Ryu draw their blood from the same gods as the fiends, Ryu was better suited at the Emperor's side. His spirit then leaves his armor, flying away to scheme further. Doku had also mentioned an awakening ritual, the mention of which caused a now concerned Rachel to quickly leave the scene. With the location of the Dark Dragon clear, Ryu would make his way through the caverns of fire and ice, battling different fiends and a dragon to make his way full circle back to the streets of Tehran. There, he'd visit Muramasa. Unfazed by the outbreak of the fiends in the city, he takes a look at the dragon sword, impressed by the craftsmanship of the blade, but notes that it's missing a gemstone that would complete the blade, significantly increasing its power and making it a match for the Dark Dragon. The gem, known as the Eye of the Dragon, was normally kept by Kureha, but now rests at her gravesite. By using 3 pieces of a stone tablet gathered throughout his journey, Ryu activates a portal near the entrance of Tehran that takes him back to Hayabusa village, where he temporarily claims the Eye of the Dragon for the sake of his mission. With the dragon's sword now complete, Ryu is ready for the task ahead of him, confronting the Emperor. He once again traverses the portal, eventually leading him to a field where Rachel is tied up, ready to be sacrificed for the awakening ritual, which will grant Alma incredible power. Before Ryu can rescue her, Alma reappears in a more powerful form, though she is defeated nonetheless. The two make a mad dash to Rachel as Doku's spear prepares to kill her. Alma manages to make it to her first, shielding her from Doku's attack with her own body, ending in her detransformation and untimely death. Ryu presses on, finding himself inside of a large labyrinth where Doku awaited in the center. After one final battle, Ryu defeats Doku, yet before he can disappear, he casts a curse upon Ryu that transforms him into a blue-skinned fiend. Seemingly unchanged by this transformation, Blue Hayabusa moves forward toward the palace, running into a dying enemy ninja that reluctantly gives him the key to enter, tasking Ryu with reclaiming the Vigor Empire. He then enters the palace, engaging in a series of intense battles before reaching the top. Before he can proceed further, he's forced to face the last of the 3 greater fiends Rachel had mentioned, Marbus. One fight later, and Ryu begins to climb up a long set of stairs that suddenly begins to crumble. Ryu lands in a field of flowers where the Emperor reveals himself along with the Dark Dragon Blade. With the field bursting into flames and Ryu preparing a floating platform, the battle begins. Though the Emperor initially falls to the Dragon Sword, he comes out of the lava for a final assault. After his defeat, Ryu spots the Dark Dragon and picks it up, but a sudden rumbling makes it clear that there isn't much time before the cave collapses. Luckily, Rachel was waiting for Ryu, and the two made it out of the cave in a puff of dust. A mysterious man that was waiting for them claims the Dark Dragon Blade, who then tests it by killing Gamoth. This man turns out to be Mirai, who shows no intentions of returning the blade, and so a fight to the death is necessary. Ryu is victorious, and true to Muramasa's word, the true Dragon Sword easily shatters the Dark Dragon Blade to pieces, as Ryu finally completes his mission. With the day saved and his vengeance complete, Ryu returns to Hayabusa village, respectfully returning the Eye of the Dragon to Kureha's grave before going forth into the night. Six months following what would be known as the Dark Dragon Blade incident, the Hayabusa village has been rebuilt and is enjoying a time of peace. Ryu has taken the younger sister of Kureha, shrine maiden Momoji, as his apprentice. After a sparring session, Momoji tells Ryu to return without her as she prepares flowers to pay respects to Kureha. However, an assault from the rival Black Spider clan catches the village off guard, and Momoji is kidnapped while she's separated from everyone. Ryu defends the villagers whilst defeating the fiend that overpowered Momiji. After discovering the method used for the invasion and Momiji's disappearance, Ryu vows to rescue her, ensuring she doesn't share the fate of her sister. Using a portal similar to the one used during the Dark Dragon incident, Ryu would end up back at the Vogorian monastery in Tehran. Strangely, the monastery is in pristine condition, showing no signs of damage from the battle with Alma despite it only being 6 months. After a battle with a large fiend, Ryu obtains a strange stone, and the monastery's clean look is revealed to be an illusion as it returns to its ruined state. Ryu is then approached by the greater fiend Ishtaros, worshipped as the Vogorian god of creation, who asks for his name as the one responsible for the destruction of the monastery. She then disappears, stating that the two will meet again soon. Going through another portal, Ryu arrives at a set of multiple portals, and takes the one available that ends up leading back to Hayabusa village. Ever wise, Muramatsu informs Ryu of the story of the Dark Dragon stones, thus created immediately following the defeat of the Dark Dragon, containing both incredible power and the potential to revive the dead dragon if gathered, with Ryu already having one in his possession. The only way to track the stones effectively was to already have one, as the stones glowed with increasing intensity the closer they were to each other. So the method was clear: follow the stones and Momiji will be found somewhere along the way. Returning to Tehran via portal, Ryu fights a familiar foe as he collects another stone, yet returns to find another assault on the Hayabusa village from the Black Spider clan. During the battle, a ninja held Sakura, one of the village children close to Momiji, hostage. Luckily, a village boy by the name of Sanji distracts him as Ryu manages to save the young girl. The journey from this point would be straightforward, with familiar destinations and old foes guarding dragon stones, with even Doku being among them. After ending up on the mysterious Isle of Destiny, Ryu would encounter the current leader of the Black Spider, Obaba, who had gained a monstrous transformation from Ishtaros, only to fall by Ryu's hand. Ryu would gather more stones before being only one short, being led to the gates of the underworld where he would find Momiji imprisoned, being guarded by Ishtaros and Dike, the Vogorian goddess of destruction. Ishtaros would seize the stones from Ryu, becoming imbued with the strength of the Dark Dragon, overpowering him. As Momiji watched in horror, the spirit of Kureha would come to her, releasing the eye of the dragon that had been sealed inside of her, granting Ryu the strength of the true dragon sword once more. Ishtaros would be promptly killed by Ryu, though Nike still had a scheme up her sleeve, attempting to use the still empowered body of Ishtaros to revive the Vogorian Emperor. This plan would fail, however, with the Emperor's body falling apart and only returning in his melted form, which Ryu had made short work of. This development would cause Nike to panic, who foresaw the inevitable revival of the Dark Dragon, and subsequent destruction of both human and fiend alike. Seeking to take out the Dragon Ninja before this could happen, she too was cut down. Though incredibly powerful, the newly revived Dark Dragon would be defeated by Ryu as it was years ago. With the day saved, Ryu and Momiji returned to the village, where they enjoyed leisurely time with the children. Another 6 months pass as Joe Hayabusa finds himself in battle with Crimson, Greater Fiend Lord of Vampires, who had been rivals of the Hayabusa clan for a millennium. Though initially starting off strong, Joe finds himself at a disadvantage until Ryu arrives, and together, they defeat the vampire. After relaying news of Joe being in stable condition to the villagers, Momiji informs Ryu of Black Spider clan movements in Tokyo. Ryu then heads out of the village to investigate. A CIA agent by the name of Sonya inquires about Ryu's current location to Muramasa inside of his shop in Tokyo, claiming it has to do with the Jashin. She is soon apprehended by Black Spider clan ninjas, and, despite Ryu arriving and attempting to intervene, is taken away. After cutting down several ninja and making his way throughout the city, Ryu spots Sonya being interrogated by a woman named Elizabeth inside of a tower, and after making it to the top, he battles a powerful ninja as Elizabeth attempts to escape with Sonya via helicopter. Ryu wins the battle, managing to force her to drop Sonya, claiming she no longer is needed. Sonya quickly informs Ryu that Elizabeth and her conspirators are after the demon statue held by the Hayabusa clan, and that the village will be in immediate danger. After fighting his way through Black Spider forces, Ryu makes his way to his father, who's hanging off a ledge following a battle with elite Black Spider ninja, Genshin. Genshin gives the demon statue to Elizabeth, and stands in Ryu's way before he can pursue. The two do battle, with Joe intercepting Genshin whilst bidding Ryu to give chase after the statue, as Elizabeth must intend to use it to revive the Jashin Archfiend. The rest of Ryu's journey consists of him chasing Elizabeth through various regions that are being tormented by her greater fiend kin. Alexei in New York City, Wolf in Italy, a battle alongside Sonya on the battleship Daedalus, and Zidonius in Moscow. After pursuing Elizabeth through the Amazon, Ryu eventually confronts her inside of a temple of sacrifice, where she reveals herself to be the last of the 4 greater fiends, and she does battle with Ryu. After being defeated, she retreats, with Genshin, who was present during the battle, telling Ryu that the ritual to revive the Archfiend will take place inside of Mount Fuji, dangerously close to the Hayabusa village, and challenges Ryu to a duel. After having the Eye of the Dragon delivered to him by Ayane, Ryu makes his way to the summit of Mount Fuji, and defeats Genshin in a final battle, killing him. Inside of the underworld, Ryu does battle with all of the previous greater fiends, notably saving Sonya, who had been kidnapped by Alexei after she followed Ryu to be of use. After making his way to the Hall of Blood, Ryu is attacked by a revived fiend Genshin. The two do battle and, as he lays dying, Genshin expresses his lack of regret at following the path of a proud ninja, and the two come to respect each other in his final moments. Elizabeth then appears, disrespecting the fallen warrior and attacking Ryu, promptly falling to his blade. Though Ryu makes his way to the ritual site and defeats the sorcerer Dagura Dai in charge of the ceremony, after a final sacrifice, the Archfiend appears to awaken in an incomplete state and battles Ryu as it attempts to escape the mountain. After an initial victory, a drop of Ryu's blood falls into the beast as he's leaving with Sonya, causing the full revival of the Archfiend. Ryu jumps into battle once more, defeating the beast, which explodes. He then looks on to the sunrise with Sonya. After leaving Genshin's sword in a black spider graveyard and paying his respects, Ryu notices the presence of the princess of the Mugen Tenshin clan, Kazumi, sister of Ayane. He reaffirms his resolve, stating that there's much left for him to do before walking off into the mist. Inside of the Hayabusa village, Ryu is approached by the commanding officer of the Japanese military and a woman named Mizuki to help eliminate a terrorist group targeting the Japanese prime minister, with the leader of said group, the Regent of the Mask, specifically calling for Ryu's appearance. Though the two eventually do battle and Ryu appears to be victorious, the regent casts a curse upon Ryu known as the Grip of Murder, causing the dragon sword to disappear and Ryu to writhe in pain. The missile strikes the prime minister's residence, but Ryu manages to survive the incident. Aboard the allied ship Unagi, Ryu and Mizuki witness the regent's announcement, demanding all nations surrender within 7 days or face destruction. Following a lead, Ryu and Mizuki depart to a desert. Prior to investigating, Ryu is given a bow by Mizuki and has a surprise visit from Ayane. To replace the missing dragon sword, she gives Ryu the Jinran Maru sword as a gift from friend and current master of the Mugen Tenshin clan, Hayate. Pressing on into the desert, Ryu eventually comes face to face with the regent on the rooftop. He explains that the Grip of Murder is a curse that feeds off the lives taken by Ryu, using the dragon sword as a conduit, hence his disappearance into Ryu's arm. Though Ryu attempts to strike him, the regent disappears, leading straight into a battle with the gunship before he returns to the Unagi. There he meets Mizuki's daughter, Kana, and her brother-in-law, Cliff Higgins. Cliff informs Ryu of the identity of those threatening world peace, the LOA, or Lords of Alchemy. At an LOA Island research facility, Ryu once again encounters the Regent, who sticks an empowered dinosaur in Ryu that he had made using cloning technology. After a fierce battle, Ryu says Mizuki had been held hostage by LOA forces, yet she would end up tranquilizing Ryu, leaving him to wake up inside of a VR room that applies real damage to those inside of the simulation. A researcher by the name of Lovelace explains the simulation to Ryu, before forcing him to fight a series of familiar foes in familiar locations. After forcefully escaping during a recreation of his encounter with the Regent, Ryu fights the Chimera created using his own blood as a base, and eventually makes his way back to the Regent, who sacrifices Lovelace to create a strong Chimera to face Ryu. Ryu comes out victorious, and rescues Kana, who had been placed inside of the facility along with Mizuki. However, the two would be placed into US military custody as they were leaving, being reprimanded for their actions. Ryu and Mizuki then bond over Kana and her late husband. Ryu then makes a trip back to Hayabusa village to investigate a method of dealing with his curse, first returning to the Black Spider graveyard to borrow Genshin's sword for the battles to come. After cutting through several Black Spider attackers, Ryu succumbs to the effects of the curse and falls unconscious near the outskirts of the village, to be discovered by Sanji. After being nursed back to health by Momiji, Ryu spends some time with the villagers, promising Sanji proper training whenever he'd like. After learning about Joe's location outside of the village from Momiji, the two journey to him, fighting off Black Spider ambushes along the way. This culminates in an assault from the presumed dead Obaba, and the two end up defeating her together, with Ryu saving Momiji from a potentially lethal fall. After bringing Momiji to his father's shrine, Joe reveals that not only is there no known cure for the Grip of Murder, but there is a case of a Hayabusa ancestor dying to it, leaving nothing but the dragon sword behind. The curse wasn't the only factor causing Ryu's suffering, but also a karmic debt accumulated from generations of death via the dragon sword itself. Back on the Unagi, Ryu prepares to make his way to the Arctic while being given a gift by Kana. He does battle with a clone of himself, with the Grip of Murder soon coming back in full force. Taking advantage of Ryu's vulnerable state, Cliff reveals to not only be working for the LOA as head of R&D, but the head of the LOA being his grandfather, Ashtier Higgins. The two reveal that Kana is a core part of their plans. Ashtier then revives the clone, and despite Ryu defeating it, he loses the two after being forced off of their jet, leaving Ryu to later go after them on a warship called the Black Narwhal. Waiting on a UN ship, commanding officer Ishigami informs Ryu that Mizuki had come up with a plan to rescue the now kidnapped Kana. After taking down several support ships, Ryu battles and defeats Ashtier on the main ship, learning of the LOA's plans to transform Kana into a god before slaying the alchemist. Facing the regent once more, Ryu defeats him, cutting his mask and revealing him to be Kana's dead father, Theodore Higgins. Cliff reveals that he had the man's memories removed after killing him once, controlling him via his mask so that he would battle and inevitably killed by Ryu once more. Kana witnesses this and emotionally breaks down, accusing Ryu of murder, but the grip of murder would prevent Ryu from taking action. This allows Cliff to forcibly remove the dragon sword from Ryu, now pure of the sins of the past thanks to the curse, and uses it to fuse Kana with the egg inside of the chamber, transforming her into a goddess. With the dragon sword in hand, the goddess destroys the narwhal, leaving Ryu to sink into the sea. Ryu receives a vision of Ganshin, who entrusts the full strength of his blade to Ryu as he returns to the afterlife. Ryu awakes under the care of Mizuki, and the two, along with Ishigami, resolve to stop the goddess in Tokyo and save Kana. After dealing with hordes of enemies in the now ruined city, Ryu runs into Muramasa, who advises him to trust in himself and the dragon sword when the time comes. Ryu and Mizuki are soon attacked by Cliff, who transformed and seemed to overwhelm the two. That being until Theodore makes a sudden appearance, turning out to be the one who saved Ryu from the shipwreck. After cutting down Cliff and hearing his motivation of jealousy, the two warriors leave Mizuki behind to make their way to save Kana. Once they get close, Theodore attacks Ryu, acknowledging his duty to save the world, but being against the potential killing of his own daughter. The following battle would be a ruse, however, as when Ryu deals a lethal blow, Theodore takes the opportunity to dispel the curse placed on Ryu. With the burden of the curse finally lifted, Ryu faces Kana as the goddess unmasked, and after a fierce battle, he reclaims the dragon sword after sacrificing Genshin's blade to destroy the goddess's copy. After inserting the eye of the dragon, Ryu uses the true dragon sword to slay the goddess, with Kana remaining unharmed. Mizuki later finds her safe, and Ryu readies himself to leave, but Ishigami reminds him that he's neither killer nor hero, but a ninja. Mizuki reassures Kana that Ryu will always be there to protect him when it counts, and the dragon ninja makes its exit into the sunrise. Being gaming's premier ninja representative and an icon amongst two different franchises, Ryu is a character with an extensive legacy and an influential franchise to boot. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing his story, and until next time, this was Unwatchable.